What if I told you that being molested from ages 9 to 13 could become a psychological edge worth billions? That sounds impossible, right? Even offensive. But here's what most people miss about Oprah's success. Her trauma gave her something no Harvard MBA could teach: hypervigilance, emotional intelligence, the ability to see pain in others instantly, to connect in ways that felt almost supernatural. By 17, she was already using these skills on Nashville's WVOL radio. Callers felt understood in ways they'd never experienced. This wasn't just healing, it was the foundation of a media empire. But how does a child's worst nightmare become their greatest strength? Picture this: a young girl on her grandmother's farm in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, in the 1960s. She's living in a shack with no running water, no electricity. Her grandmother beats her with switches for the smallest mistakes. But that's not even the worst part. Between ages 9 and 13, her cousin, uncle, and a family friend hurt her in ways a child should never experience. Most kids would break, shut down completely, build walls so high that nothing could get through. But something strange happened to Oprah. Instead of closing off, she opened up. She started watching people, really watching them. Every facial expression, every voice change, every tiny signal that showed what someone was really feeling inside. Think about it. When you're small and powerless, survival depends on reading the room. You learn to spot danger before it arrives. You notice when someone's angry before they even know it themselves. This isn't just awareness, it's hypervigilance that trauma creates. Here's where it gets real. While other kids were playing with toys, Oprah was developing emotional intelligence that would make psychology professors jealous. She could sense pain in others instantly, not because she was naturally gifted, but because she had felt every shade of pain herself. The psychological mechanism is fascinating. Abuse survivors often develop hypervigilance. They scan constantly for threats. But Oprah's brain did something different. Instead of just detecting danger, she learned to detect need, emotional need. The kind that makes people desperate to feel understood. Her first break at WVOL in Nashville proved this theory. She was 17, still a teenager carrying all this trauma. But when she read copy on air and took calls, something magical happened. Her voice changed. It became softer, more present. She wasn't just responding to their words, she was responding to their pain. Her colleagues were stunned. They'd never heard anyone connect with strangers like this. Callers would break down crying, not because she said anything profound, but because she heard what they weren't saying. The loneliness behind the anger, the fear behind the complaints, the desperate need to feel less alone. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Her own wounds made her fearless about exploring others' deepest struggles. Most people avoid heavy topics. They change the subject when things get uncomfortable. Not Oprah. She learned early that darkness was just another country she'd already visited. Sexual abuse? She'd been there. Poverty? She lived it. Feeling worthless? She knew that feeling intimately. So when guests or callers shared their secrets, she didn't flinch. She didn't judge. She recognized the landscape of their pain, because she'd mapped her own. This created something unprecedented in media. Authentic vulnerability, not the fake kind that celebrities perform for sympathy. Real vulnerability, the kind that makes millions of strangers feel like they're talking to their best friend. Her trauma response system became her competitive advantage. While other hosts prepared questions, Oprah prepared to feel. She could sense when someone was holding back, when they were ready to share more, when they needed permission to break down completely. The business world had never seen anything like it. Traditional media training taught hosts to stay detached, professional, neutral. But Oprah's approach was the opposite. She brought her whole wounded self to every conversation, and audiences responded like they'd been waiting their entire lives for someone to do exactly that.
This part of the program is sponsored by Via Nature, where nature meets innovation. Visit vianature.com. Your planet-friendly goodies are just a click away.
Few people realize that her greatest weakness was becoming her greatest strength. The same emotional openness that made her vulnerable to abuse made her irresistible to audiences. People could sense she wasn't performing empathy, she was living it. By age 19, she was hosting her own talk show in Baltimore. The ratings were modest, but something bigger was happening. Viewers weren't just watching her show, they were having a relationship with her. She represented something they'd never seen on television before. Someone who understood their pain without explanation. Her childhood trauma didn't just shape her personality, it gave her the exact skill set needed to revolutionize television. The ability to make strangers feel safe, to create intimacy across airwaves, to turn confession into entertainment without making it feel exploitative. The irony is perfect. The thing that should have destroyed her career became its foundation. Her willingness to be wounded in public made her the most trusted person in America. Her refusal to hide her scars made her relatable to millions who were carrying their own. But having this gift was only half the battle. The real challenge, learning to use it without destroying herself in the process. The real test came when she had to prove this emotional approach could work beyond Baltimore. Here's what nobody tells you about turning pain into power. It requires a moment of brutal self-awareness. Most people think transformation happens gradually. They imagine slow progress, steady improvement. But for Oprah, everything changed in one crushing moment of clarity. Baltimore, 1976. WJZ-TV newsroom. 22-year-old Oprah sits at the anchor desk, trying desperately to be someone she's not. The executives wanted polished. They wanted detached. They wanted professional. So she straightened her hair, wore conservative suits, practiced speaking without emotion. She was failing miserably. Every day felt like acting in a play she didn't understand. The teleprompter words felt foreign in her mouth. When she read stories about house fires, her voice would crack. When she covered accidents, tears would form in her eyes. Her bosses were horrified. News anchors don't cry. They don't feel. They just report. The breaking point came during a story about local families losing their homes. While other reporters stayed behind police lines, Oprah couldn't help herself. She walked over to the victims, started talking to them, really talking, not just asking questions for sound bites, but listening to their pain. Then she did something that shocked everyone. She went to her car, got blankets, brought them to the families. Her news director was furious. "You're a reporter, not a social worker." But Oprah couldn't separate herself from the story. She felt their loss, their fear, their need for comfort. This wasn't professional behavior, it was human behavior. And television executives hated it. The demotion was brutal. One day she's co-anchoring the 6 o'clock news. The next day she shuffled to a morning talk show. Her colleagues whispered. The industry watched. Everyone assumed her career was over. Local talk shows were where careers went to die. But her boss's reaction led to something unexpected. August 14, 1978. The cameras rolled for People Are Talking. The guests started sharing their stories. And Oprah, she stopped pretending. No more stiff posture. No more controlled voice. She leaned forward, asked follow-up questions, shared her own experiences. When guests cried, she cried too. The executives in the control room were panicking. This wasn't how television worked. You don't break down on camera. You don't share personal stories. You don't make the show about your own emotions. But the phone lines lit up. Viewers were calling, not to complain, but to thank her. Here's the twist nobody saw coming. Her unprofessional behavior was exactly what audiences craved. They were tired of perfect anchors who seemed untouchable. They wanted someone real. Someone who understood their struggles. Someone who cried when they cried. The ratings told the story. People Are Talking climbed steadily. They overtook competitors. Viewers tuned in not just for the guests, but for Oprah's reactions, her questions, her willingness to be vulnerable on live television. She wasn't just hosting a show. She was having conversations, real conversations, the kind people have with close friends. This created a fundamental shift in her approach. Instead of reporting on people's problems, she started sharing in them. When guests talked about divorce, she mentioned her own relationship struggles. When they discussed weight issues, she talked about her own battles with food. When they shared childhood trauma, she offered her own painful memories. Other hosts thought she was making a massive mistake. You're supposed to stay neutral, keep boundaries, maintain professional distance. But Oprah discovered something revolutionary. Vulnerability creates connection. Authenticity builds trust. When you share your wounds, people feel safe sharing theirs. The show became a phenomenon in Baltimore. Then Chicago called. Well, TV wanted her to host their struggling morning show, AM Chicago. It was ranked dead last in the ratings. Phil Donahue dominated the time slot. Everyone thought she was crazy to take the job. But Oprah brought her radical authenticity to Chicago. Same approach, same willingness to cry on camera, same refusal to hide her emotions. The results were immediate. Within months, AM Chicago rose from last place to first. They beat Phil Donahue in his own format. The show got renamed The Oprah Winfrey Show. Then it went national. Her refusal to hide her pain became the foundation of her unique brand, radical authenticity. Other hosts performed empathy. Oprah lived it. Other hosts asked about feelings. Oprah shared her own. This wasn't just a different style, it was a different philosophy. Television as healing, broadcasting as therapy, entertainment as transformation. The competitive advantage was obvious. While other hosts prepared questions, Oprah prepared to feel. While they maintained professional distance, she eliminated it completely. While they tried to control the conversation, she let it flow naturally. This created something unprecedented in media.
This part of the program is sponsored by The Tria, oasis of comfort with a touch of luxury. Visit thetria.com. Your dream home vibe is just a scroll away.
Genuine intimacy with millions of strangers. But success as an employee was just the beginning. The real question was whether she'd risk everything she'd built for something even bigger. The moment came in 1988. Oprah faced a choice that would define everything. Stay comfortable as an employee, or risk it all for ownership. What would you risk everything for? Oprah bet her entire future on one word: ownership. The Oprah Winfrey Show dominated daytime television. Millions watched daily. Advertisers paid premium rates. Everyone was getting rich, except Oprah herself was just an employee. Think about it. She was the star, the draw, the reason people tuned in. But she was making someone else wealthy. Capital Cities ABC owned her show. They controlled the content. They made the big decisions. They kept most of the profits. Oprah got a salary, a good salary, but still, just a salary. Most people would stay comfortable. Why rock the boat? The show was successful. Her career was secure. She had fame and respect. But Oprah saw something different. She saw potential, not just for more money, but for complete creative freedom. The decision to buy her own show seemed insane. Industry experts were baffled. Why fix what wasn't broken? Television was a man's world. Big corporations ran the networks. Stars were employees, not owners. Women definitely weren't media moguls. The financial risk was massive. Here's what made it even crazier. Oprah had no business training, no MBA, no corporate experience. She was a talk show host, a very successful one, but still, just a host. The media establishment whispered, can she really run a production company? Does she understand profit margins, marketing strategies, distribution deals? But Oprah had something they didn't. She understood her audience, really understood them, not from market research or focus groups, from shared experience, from connecting with them daily, from reading their pain and knowing what they needed. The skepticism was brutal. Male executives questioned her business sense. They assumed she'd fail. Television was too complex, too competitive, too expensive. Women didn't build media empires. They starred in them. But Oprah had made up her mind. She'd already founded Harpo Productions in 1986. Notice the name? Oprah spelled backwards. Everything about this company reflected her values, her vision, her approach to leadership. This wasn't just business, it was personal. Here's where it gets interesting. Her trauma-informed leadership style confused traditional executives. Most media bosses ruled through fear, demanded respect, made decisions from the top down. Oprah did the opposite. She led with empathy. She asked questions. She listened to her staff. Her business meetings felt like therapy sessions. She wanted to understand people's motivations, their fears, their dreams. She applied the same emotional intelligence that made her a great host to running a company. Other executives thought she was too soft, too emotional, too involved. But this approach worked. Her staff felt heard, valued, understood. They weren't just employees. They were part of something bigger. They were changing television, transforming lives, making a difference. This created incredible loyalty, low turnover, high productivity. The creative control changed everything. Before, network executives decided show topics. They chose guests. They set limits on content. Now Oprah could go deeper, explore harder topics, spend more time on stories that mattered. She could turn television into therapy. Her understanding of pain helped her identify what audiences truly craved. Not just entertainment, not just information. They wanted healing. They wanted hope. They wanted to feel less alone. Network television couldn't provide this, but Oprah could. The immediate impact was obvious. Shows became more personal, more raw, more transformative. Guests shared deeper secrets. Audiences responded more emotionally. Ratings actually improved. Critics were shocked. Emotional content was supposed to be niche. Instead, it became mainstream. Ownership gave her something invaluable: the freedom to fail, to experiment, to take risks. Network executives wouldn't have approved many of her choices. Too controversial, too personal, too risky. But as owner, she could follow her instincts. She started choosing projects based on emotional impact, not just commercial potential. Books for her book club, movies for her production company, topics for her show. Everything filtered through one question: will this help people heal? The financial results were staggering. Harpo Productions became incredibly profitable, not just from the talk show, from licensing deals, international sales, syndication rights, merchandise. Oprah wasn't just hosting television. She was building a media empire. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Her trauma-informed approach to business became her competitive advantage.
This part of the program is sponsored by Pause Wars. Gear up for happy tales. Sniff out pausewars.com, where your pet's wag comes with a splash of style.
While other media companies focused on demographics, she focused on emotions. While they chased trends, she created them. While they treated audiences like consumers, she treated them like patients. The industry had to admit they were wrong. This emotional woman had outsmarted them all. She proved that understanding pain could be incredibly profitable, that vulnerability could build empires, that authenticity could generate wealth. Ownership didn't just make her rich, it gave her the freedom to turn television into therapy, to create content that healed instead of just entertained, to build a business that reflected her values, to prove that success could have soul. But owning a talk show was just the beginning. What she built next would prove that her real genius wasn't in entertainment at all. Her real genius lay in understanding what people needed before they knew it themselves. Most media moguls build audiences. Oprah built something more powerful. She built a community of the wounded, people who carried secrets, people who felt broken, people who desperately needed to feel less alone. The strategic expansion beyond talk shows started with careful timing. In April 2000, Harpo Productions launched O Magazine with Hearst's support. Publishing experts were skeptical. Women's magazines were crowded, competitive, expensive to launch. But Oprah saw something different. She saw millions of women who felt lost, overwhelmed, searching for meaning. Here's where it gets interesting. Oprah magazine didn't treat readers like consumers. It treated them like therapy patients. Every article felt like a conversation with a wise friend. Stories about overcoming trauma, finding purpose, healing relationships. The content was deeply personal, vulnerably honest. Other magazines focused on celebrity gossip, fashion trends, beauty tips. Oprah magazine focused on transformation, self-discovery, inner growth. Readers weren't just buying a magazine, they were joining a healing community. Fortune magazine called it the most successful startup in the industry. Not because it was profitable, because it was transformational. The subscription numbers told the story. Readers weren't just buying single issues, they were committing long-term, renewing year after year, sharing copies with friends, creating book clubs around the articles. This wasn't typical consumer behavior, this was community building. Oprah's book club had already proven this approach worked. Started in 1996 as a show segment, it became something revolutionary. Her first selection was The Deep End of the Ocean by Jacqueline Mitchard. The book became an instant bestseller. She turned reading into a shared healing experience, not just book recommendations, emotional journeys, stories that help people process their own pain. Here's the twist nobody saw coming. Her book selections followed a pattern: trauma survivors, difficult childhoods, characters overcoming impossible odds. She wasn't just picking good books, she was prescribing literary therapy. Each selection became a mirror for her audience's struggles. The results were staggering. Books she selected sold millions of additional copies. But more importantly, people were reading together, discussing together, healing together. She transformed solitary reading into community experience. Authors begged to be chosen. Publishers fought for her attention. But Oprah's criteria remained consistent. Does this book help people heal? Does it offer hope? Does it show transformation is possible? Commercial potential was secondary. Emotional impact was everything. Harpo Productions applied this same philosophy to film projects. The Color Purple, Beloved, Precious. Each movie tackled difficult subjects: abuse, racism, trauma. Traditional Hollywood avoided these topics. Too heavy, too risky, too emotional. But Oprah understood something crucial. Her audience wasn't looking for escapism. They were looking for recognition, for validation, for proof that their struggles mattered, that their pain had purpose, that healing was possible. The business genius was obvious. By serving the emotionally hungry, she created unprecedented loyalty. Other media companies fought for attention. Oprah commanded devotion. Her audience didn't just consume her content, they lived it, breathed it, shared it with everyone they knew. This created the Oprah effect. Her recommendations moved markets. Her endorsements changed lives. Her influence extended beyond entertainment, into politics, culture, society. She wasn't just building a media empire, she was building a movement. The expansion continued with Oxygen Media in 1999, targeting women's programming. Each new venture followed the same blueprint: emotional connection over commercial calculation, transformation over entertainment, community over consumption. Her personal journey of healing became a template for content across all platforms. Every project filtered through her own experience, her own growth, her own transformation. This wasn't calculated marketing. This was authentic sharing. She offered her healing journey as a roadmap for others. The magazine featured her monthly column: raw, honest, vulnerable. She shared her weight struggles, relationship challenges, spiritual discoveries. Other celebrities hired publicists to hide their problems. Oprah hired writers to share hers. This approach created something unprecedented in media history: a billion-dollar empire built on vulnerability, on authenticity, on the revolutionary idea that sharing pain could be profitable, that healing could be scalable, that transformation could be mass-marketed. Her media empire wasn't built on entertainment. It was built on transformation. Every platform served the same purpose: to help people heal, to make them feel less alone, to prove that their struggles had meaning. But in 2011, her most ambitious project would test whether this formula could survive in the brutal world of cable television. OWN launched January 1st, 2011, and immediately faced the harsh realities of cable television. What happens when your greatest strength becomes your greatest weakness? The network struggled out of the gate. This was supposed to be her crowning achievement, the culmination of decades of success, a television network that would showcase her vision to the world. The Oprah Winfrey Network represented everything she believed in: inspirational content, uplifting stories, programming that healed instead of harmed. She poured her heart into every detail, every show, every decision. This wasn't just business expansion. This was her legacy in television form. But something went terribly wrong. Viewership was disappointing week after week. Advertisers pulled out. Critics sharpened their knives. The network was bleeding money faster than anyone anticipated. Media outlets called it her biggest failure, her most public humiliation. Think about it. This was Oprah Winfrey, the woman who never failed, who turned everything she touched into gold. But cable television was different. Ruthless, unforgiving. Her empathy-first approach wasn't working. Audiences weren't connecting. Shows were getting canceled. The whole venture was crashing. Here's where it gets brutal. The same emotional intelligence that made her a talk show queen was failing her as a network executive. She programmed content based on what she thought people needed, not what they wanted to watch. She created shows that felt like therapy sessions. But viewers wanted entertainment. The financial pressure was crushing. Millions of dollars disappearing monthly. Investors getting nervous. Staff getting laid off. Oprah found herself in unfamiliar territory. She was used to success, to universal approval, to being right about audience preferences. Now she was just wrong. The media coverage was merciless. Headlines called OWN a disaster, a vanity project, a massive miscalculation. Critics questioned her business judgment, her understanding of modern television, her ability to lead a network. The woman who built an empire was being treated like a failed entrepreneur. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Oprah's response to failure revealed something profound about her character. Instead of making excuses, she looked inward. She applied the same brutal honesty she used in therapy to her business problems. She admitted she didn't know the cable business well enough. The moment of realization hit her hard. Understanding people's pain wasn't enough anymore. She needed to understand business pain too. Market research, programming strategies, distribution deals, financial management, all the technical aspects she'd always avoided. Her trauma-informed leadership needed business education. This is where her recovery skills became crucial. She treated own struggles like personal trauma, something to process, to learn from, to heal from. She didn't run away from the problems. She studied them, analyzed them, searched for patterns and solutions. The strategic pivot was fascinating. Instead of abandoning her emotional approach, she refined it. She kept the focus on meaningful content, but added commercial awareness. She learned to balance inspiration with entertainment, heart with business sense, purpose with profit. She restructured the network's programming, brought in experienced television executives, started listening to market research. But she didn't compromise her core values. She found ways to make healing content more engaging, more watchable, more commercially viable. Here's what made this recovery remarkable. Oprah used the network's failure as another form of shared vulnerability. She talked openly about her mistakes, her learning process, her embarrassment. She turned business failure into personal connection with her audience. The honesty was refreshing. Most executives hide their failures, make excuses, blame external factors. But Oprah owned her mistakes completely. She admitted she was naive about television business, that she needed to grow, to adapt, to learn new skills. This transparency created something unexpected, deeper audience loyalty. People respected her honesty, her willingness to admit weakness, her commitment to improvement. They watched her learn in real time, struggle publicly, grow visibly. The network's programming slowly improved. Shows found their rhythm. Ratings stabilized. Discovery eventually bought a majority stake in 2017, providing the stability needed for long-term success. But more importantly, Oprah discovered a new kind of strength, business resilience. The ability to fail forward, to transform mistakes into wisdom. Looking back, this was the real turning point in Oprah's evolution. She learned that authenticity about failure could be more powerful than hiding success. That vulnerability in business could create deeper connections than perfection. That admitting weakness could demonstrate true strength. The network's struggles taught her something crucial. Her empathy was still her greatest asset, but it needed to be informed by business intelligence, emotional wisdom combined with market awareness, heart guided by smart strategy. This painful lesson revealed something deeper about how she approached every decision, something that would explain her unprecedented success across every venture she touched. Her approach revealed a fundamental truth about building lasting success. Here's the secret that transformed a traumatized child into a media mogul. Intention determines everything. Not strategy, not talent, not luck. Intention, the driving force behind every decision, every action, every moment of success or failure. 1989. Oprah discovers a book that changes everything. Gary Zukav's The Seat of the Soul. She reads about karma, about cause and effect, about how the intention behind every action shapes its outcome. Most people would file this under self-help. Oprah saw it as business strategy. She started requiring her producers to state their intention for every show, before every meeting, before every decision. Not just what they wanted to accomplish, but why they wanted to accomplish it. What deeper purpose drove their choices? This wasn't typical business protocol. This was revolutionary thinking. The producers thought she was crazy at first. Intentions? In television, this was entertainment. You create content that gets ratings, that sells advertising, that generates profit. But Oprah pushed deeper. She wanted to know the emotional motivation behind every segment, every guest, every story they told. Here's where it gets fascinating. She called it intentional television, content that fulfilled what she termed the dream of the creator, shows that uplifted instead of exploited, stories that healed instead of harmed, programming that served the audience's deepest needs, not just their surface desires. This meant declining interviews she felt were exploitative, refusing sensational topics that would boost ratings but harm guests, choosing stories that inspired rather than destroyed. While other shows chased controversy, Oprah chased transformation. Her business decisions followed the same pattern: book club selections, magazine articles, film projects, partnership agreements. Everything filtered through one question: what's the real intention here? Will this serve people's growth, their healing, their transformation? Or is this just profit disguised as purpose? The results were staggering. Her audience sensed the authenticity, the genuine care, the intentional goodness behind every choice. They didn't just watch her show, they trusted her completely. They bought books she recommended. They followed her guidance. They believed in her vision. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Her understanding of human intention, learned through her own trauma, became her ultimate business strategy. She recognized that people are driven by deeper needs: validation, understanding, hope, connection. Most media companies ignored these needs. Oprah built her empire serving them. This allowed her to predict what audiences needed before they knew it themselves. She could sense the collective pain, the shared struggles, the universal desires for meaning and purpose. While other executives followed market research, Oprah followed her intuition about human motivation. Her political endorsements stemmed from this intentional approach. She didn't support candidates based on party lines, or personal relationships, or political advantage. She evaluated their intentions, their genuine desire to serve, their commitment to positive change. Her endorsement of Barack Obama wasn't political calculation, it was intentional alignment with his vision. The cultural influence followed naturally. When someone operates from genuine intention, people respond. They sense the authenticity, the lack of hidden agendas, the pure motivation to help and heal. This created unprecedented trust, unprecedented loyalty, unprecedented influence. Her trauma-informed intuition about human motivation became the ultimate competitive advantage. While other media moguls studied demographics, Oprah studied souls. While they chased trends, she identified timeless needs. While they created content, she created transformation. Her production meetings became spiritual exercises. Staff members shared their intentions, their motivations, their deeper purposes. This created alignment, shared vision, collective commitment to serving something greater than profit. The content reflected this unity, this intentional focus on healing and growth. The magazine embodied this philosophy. Every article was chosen with intention. Every story served a purpose. Every issue was designed to uplift, to inspire, to transform. Readers felt the difference. They subscribed for life. They recommended it to friends. They built communities around the content. This intentional approach extended beyond business into every aspect of her life: relationships, investments, philanthropy, public appearances. Everything guided by the same principle. What's my intention here? How can I serve? How can I help? How can I heal? What emerged was something unprecedented. A business model built on weaponizing vulnerability. This philosophy created something unprecedented in business history, a media empire built on authentic connection rather than traditional marketing. The most successful people don't overcome their wounds, they weaponize them. Oprah's journey from victim to victor became a blueprint that millions would follow. But here's what makes her story different from every other rags to riches tale. She didn't hide her scars. She turned them into her signature. Think about it. Most celebrities hire publicists to manage their image, to hide their flaws, to create perfect personas. Oprah did the opposite. She shared her deepest pain on national television. Sexual abuse, poverty, weight struggles, relationship failures. Every wound became content. Every struggle became connection. Her willingness to share her deepest pain created unprecedented trust with audiences. Not the fake trust that comes from marketing campaigns. Real trust. The kind that makes strangers feel like family. When she talked about her childhood trauma, millions of viewers thought she understands me. When she discussed her weight battles, women across America felt less alone. This trust translated into business success across every venture. Her book club didn't just recommend books, it created a reading revolution. When she selected a novel, sales would spike by hundreds of thousands. Publishers fought for her attention. Authors begged for her endorsement, but she chose books that reflected her own healing journey. Stories of trauma survivors, characters finding strength in suffering. The magazine followed the same pattern. O Magazine became the most successful startup in publishing history. Not because it was prettier than other magazines, but because it treated readers like therapy patients. Every article felt like a conversation with a trusted friend, someone who had walked through darkness and found light. Her film projects reflected this trauma-informed approach too. The Color Purple, Beloved, Precious. Each movie tackled subjects that Hollywood typically avoided. Too heavy, too emotional, too risky. But Oprah understood something crucial. Her audience wasn't looking for escapism. They were looking for recognition, for validation that their struggles mattered. Her philanthropic work extended this approach to global issues. The Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls in South Africa wasn't just about education. It was about breaking cycles of poverty and abuse. She saw herself in every student, every girl who had been told she was worthless, every child who needed someone to believe in her potential. By 2003, she became the world's first black woman billionaire. Her net worth would eventually reach $2.5 billion. But the money wasn't the point. The transformation was. She had proven that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the ultimate strength in business. While other executives hid behind corporate personas, Oprah built an empire on authenticity. Her influence revolutionized media communication. She created what experts called report talk, a more intimate form of television, where hosts didn't just interview guests, they connected with them, shared with them, healed with them. This approach became known as Oprahification, the transformation of media from entertainment to therapy. Here's the twist that changed everything about modern business practices. Her emotional approach shouldn't have worked in corporate America. Business was supposed to be rational, logical, profit-driven. But Oprah proved that authentic connection beats traditional marketing every time. Her audience didn't just buy her products, they bought into her mission. The book club turned reading into a shared healing experience. Millions of people read the same books, discuss the same themes, process the same emotions. She created communities around literature, around growth, around transformation. This wasn't just commerce, this was culture creation. Her media empire stands as proof that serving people's deepest needs creates unprecedented loyalty. While other companies fought for market share, Oprah commanded devotion. Her recommendations moved entire industries. Her endorsements changed lives. Her influence extended beyond entertainment into politics and social justice. Her trauma-informed intuition about human motivation became her ultimate competitive advantage. While other media moguls studied demographics, she studied souls. While they chased trends, she identified timeless needs, the need for understanding, for connection, for hope, for healing. Oprah didn't succeed despite her trauma. She succeeded because of it. Every wound became wisdom. Every struggle became strength. Every moment of pain became a point of connection with millions of others who had suffered similarly. She turned her deepest wounds into her greatest wealth, not just financially, but spiritually, emotionally, culturally. Her blueprint proves something revolutionary about success. The very thing that should destroy you might be the thing that saves you. This approach now shapes how business leaders think about authentic connection. Her emotional business model is studied in marketing courses worldwide. What started as survival instinct became revolutionary strategy. Your greatest wound might be your greatest weapon, but only if you're brave enough to use it. Most people spend their lives hiding their scars, covering their pain, pretending everything's fine. Oprah did the opposite. She turned her deepest trauma into her greatest strength. The recognition followed. Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2013. Cecil B. DeMille Award in 2018. Her vulnerability-driven empire earned national honors. Even her recent Apple TV Plus deal in 2018 continues this legacy of meaningful content. The question isn't what happened to you, it's what you're going to do with what happened to you. Will you let your wounds define you, or will you let them refine you? Oprah chose refinement. She transformed her pain into purpose, her suffering into success.